We are Gold Ivy.
Our mission is to empower you to own and unleash your truth.
Stories of resiliency are gold, and ivy grows in hard places.
Those hard places are what creates space for light to shine through.
You decide what works for your daily life and how to transform our lessons into your gold.
This is Ivy Unleashed,
a Gold Ivy production. Welcome back to the show. Today we are diving into a conversation that sits at the intersection of strength, identity, and the raw reality of survival. For many women, our worth is often tied to what we do. We're the fixers, the planners, and the emotional anchors for everyone around us. But what happens when life forces you to stop? When a diagnosis strips away your ability to be productive and leaves you alone with your own reflection?
Joining us today is Tiffanie Janowitz. Tiffanie is a mother, a community leader, and a breast cancer survivor who has navigated the grueling terrain of surgeries, treatments, and the terrifying in-between moments of waiting for results. Through her journey, she has gained profound insights into what it means to truly show up for people in crisis, how to redefine beauty when your body feels like a battlefield, and how to cultivate a mindset that isn't about toxic positivity, but about genuine, hard-earned peace.
Tiffanie, thank you so much for joining us, for sharing your heart, for sharing how to show up for yourself, how to show up for others. We are so grateful that you were here with the courage to share your story.
We cannot wait for you all to hear Tiffany's journey, her story. But first, a word from our sponsors.
If you've listened to the podcast for a while, you know I used to be the biggest skeptic about supplements. I thought, I can definitely get everything I need from food. But then I started to realize that high quality, clean supplements weren't about replacing a healthy diet. They were about optimizing my health in a way I never thought possible. For instance, I discovered what so many women eventually do. I was deficient in magnesium. Now that it's part of my routine, I'm sleeping better and I feel absolutely amazing. It made me realize that quality matters more than anything.
When it comes to taking supplements, ingredient integrity is a must for us both, and that's why we trust Smidge. Smidge offers a small line of foundational supplements, core nutrients, including 100% whole food vitamins, and digestive support for people who prioritize real food, but know even the best diets have gaps. They obsess over ingredient integrity, crafting minimal, clean products with zero additives and rich nutrients meticulously sourced from around the world. We both love Smidge's magnesium, but with my chronic gut health issues, Smidge's digestive support is my tried and true. I use their digestive enzymes every single day before meals, and it has been a game changer in post-meal bloat, fatigue, and overall digestion for me. If you have any digestive issues, their enzymes, including the original and HCl plus enzymes, are a must try.
Smidge just dropped some incredible whole food supplements that we've been loving. First up, their Kakadu Plum. Most vitamin C supplements are just mass-produced synthetic chemicals, but this is the real deal from Australia. It's pure, whole food vitamin C that your body actually knows how to use for glowing skin and a rock-solid immune system.
I'm also obsessed with their Australian emu oil. You won't find this at a typical health store. It's the best source of vitamin K2, MK4, which is a total game changer for women's bone and heart health. While plant-based K2 is hard for your body to process, Smidge's emu oil is already pre-converted, so your body absorbs it instantly.
So, if you want a brand that is truly backed by research, derived from sustainable principles, and only wants to provide you with the freshest, highest quality nutrients, it's Smidge.
Head over to getsmidge.com to check out their magnesium, emu oil, Kakadu Plum, and their fantastic digestive enzymes. And don't forget to use our code GOLDIVY10 at checkout for 10% off.
Are you tired of the endless battle with cravings? Do you dream of managing your appetite without the hassle, the side effects, or the hefty price tag?
Then it's time to meet Dr. Stephanie. She's not just a doctor of pharmacy. She's a certified diabetes educator and a leading hormone expert. She listened to your struggles and formulated a gentle, natural solution, GLP Wonder.
GLP Wonder is a revolutionary supplement designed for an easier path to appetite control and hunger management. How? It works by combining powerful natural ingredients like eriocitrin and green tea extract to naturally support your body's own GLP-1 levels. This signals fullness to your brain, curbs those persistent cravings, and even helps fight insulin spikes, that stubborn, fat-storing hormone.
The result, reduced hunger, better appetite control, and a more natural way to stay on track with your diet and goals. It's effective, it's safe, and it's affordable. Just 1 capsule per day for powerful results.
GLP Wonder is now easier than ever to find. Look for Dr. Stephanie's GLP Wonder at Walgreens, CVS, and Walmart. And we are thrilled to announce that you can now find it in Target stores nationwide.
Stop waiting and start winning the fight against cravings today. Find your nearest store, or to learn more and shop the full Dr. Stephanie's collection, visit drstephanies.com. And for a limited time, use code GOLDIVY30 for 30% off all Dr. Stephanie products at drstephanies.com.
And now to this episode of the Ivy Unleashed podcast. Welcome back to Ivy Unleashed. Today is one of those days that just remind Brooke and I why we're doing what we're doing. We are sharing people's stories of resilience, and that is what resonates the most with people. Knowing something somebody went through and how they got through it, how they're still standing, and just tangible things that we can all take from people's stories and apply them to our life. And that wouldn't be possible if people didn't come on our show and be vulnerable and open up and let us into their personal lives. And today we have a guest that we are so honored is here. Tiffanie Janowitz, welcome to Ivy Unleashed.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, ladies.
We are so excited. We met Tiffanie 2 years ago, we just realized, at a speaking event, and you were doing something completely different. And then the trajectory of your life completely changed.
Yes.
Talk about that. What happened after we met you 2 years ago?
Man, I mean, hindsight is one of those things that you have the choice of laughing or being like, wow, and there's been plenty of both. But in hindsight, from when I met you ladies at that speaking event, there was an awakening for me at that particular event. And there was this burning feeling inside of me that something big's coming. I'm not sure what it is. I'm not sure what it's meant for, but something bigger than what is in front of me right now. And then there was a few months later, there was another moment with my wife and I that I had a big push with it. And I looked at her and I said, in 1 year's time, our lives are going to look entirely different. I can feel it in my bones. And she looked at me and she was like, you said it to me with this conviction that I was just like, okay, let's go, and both of us are very in tune with our energy and with our spirituality and just listening to that inner voice. And truly that was the real purpose of how I've gotten through the last several years, was having the confidence of listening to my inner voice. And then there were just some really beautiful steps put into place. I had the opportunity to step very heavily into the personal development space, to be on the coaching side of that. And so that's where I've spent my time over the last several years, is in personal and business development, pouring into others. But what I didn't realize was, by me pouring into others and coaching so hard around the foundational pieces of all of that, it was prepping me for my biggest event, personally, to listen to my inner voice. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Yes. I don't know when you wanted me to drop the bomb.
Okay, don't drop the bomb yet. No, I love that though, because I think we can feel that. I'm having one of those years too, professionally, where I know this year's different, and I'm really feeling like I'm stepping into a new identity, a new calling, a new way of being, and you can feel it, and it feels a little nerve-wracking. It feels like a mystery, and am I capable of stepping into this? And so I love that you kind of had that feeling. I can't wait to dive more into that. But how we're kind of starting every episode is giving instant impact. So something that we'll unpack later on in the episode, but if people can only tune in for 10 minutes today, and you want to just kind of drop them a little golden nugget of something, what would you like to share with our listeners today?
What I would share is, if you are catching yourself in any place of uncertainty and the answers that you have received right up front are not ringing in alignment, you push for more. There is an inner voice that is pushing for a reason, and it is more powerful than anything on the outside can pour into you. So push for more if it is not in alignment.
What did that push look like for you?
In my push for me, this was definitely in a health journey for me. And I had some health concerns and I know, Brooke, you can relate to this real hard, but I had several providers just dismiss my concerns up front. And if I wouldn't have had the courage to say, this just doesn't feel in alignment for me, and this just isn't comfortable, I'm not okay settling in a place of fine. And there's been a lot of development on that word since then, but I wasn't okay with told you're fine. And so by me pushing further, it saved my life.
All right, well, let's dive headfirst into it. And so I think it's so powerful when women, people hear, what were the concerns? What were some signs? What were you experiencing? Just kind of take us full on into this experience, into the journey. So maybe somebody could potentially see themselves or others in this and kind of where it led you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll rewind time a little bit. I have a beautiful 4-year-old little boy that I had the blessing of carrying and growing in my body. And we had a beautiful, I ended up in like a C-section delivery, but I got to nurse him for 14 beautiful months. And motherhood is just a journey in and of itself. That's a topic for another day, right? But as your body heals from having babies, or just going through transitions in aging in general, our 30s to 50s, those are changing years for being a woman. And there's hormones that can come into play, that will come into play, right? There's a lot of just different things that we've got to be in tune with our body, and no person is more in tune with your body than yourself if you are listening. And that's the key there's a lot of white noise, and there's a lot of things that we can put in our body. Inputs and outputs, those matter for our bodies, right? But I say that because I had really been paying attention to what I was inputting in my body, what I was outputting, what did my physical demand look like? What did my mental demand look like? And I had some pain in my left breast that caught my attention. But again, I was like, am I working out too hard? Is this a residual from nursing several years ago? But that still maybe is something. Is this hormonal? There were a lot of angles that I was looking at of what could this be? But it hit my radar, and awareness is the very first thing. I believe that we cannot make changes. We cannot collect data without being aware of what something is. And so I was wildly aware of it, and just paying attention to what was happening with my body. I was watching my cycle. I was watching ebbs and flows of this pain that then turned into a lump. And that's when I started taking it a bit more seriously. And I went to my nurse practitioner and to my OB, and she was actually the one that planted that nudge in myself, that she said, I'm going to order several tests for you, and we're going to go through the checklist of different procedures. But if at any time something does not feel right to you, there's always room to push. And so ultimately, Cindy, if you hear this episode, you know that you have saved my life in this whole journey, because it gave me the courage to use my voice. We rely on these professionals it's their specialty, and we rely on their education and their voice to help support our voice. And when it kind of comes head to head and you have to wrestle with that, it takes courage to be like, I don't think that you're right, actually.
And that's also not common for someone who's seen a lot of doctors, for them to say, if what I'm telling you doesn't add up or doesn't feel right, let's keep going. Like that, that to me, I just want to pause. Like, that's mind blown. God bless you, Cindy.
Yes. Shout out to Cindy.
Yes, Cindy, I appreciate it. And she said it, and she was like, I'm not sharing this to scare you or anything, but I'm sharing this because I have seen cases that the blanket treatments are not always the answer. And boy, did that ring true. So I'll kind of speed this up. We went through the classic testing. I had a mammogram. I had an ultrasound, also known as a sonogram for some people who are listening. And they tested both sides to see a comparative of the left and the right. And we were really just looking at a bunch of angles. And my test came back and I was fine. And I didn't feel fine.
Hey everyone, if you're like me, January through May means cold and flu season. But this year, I'm ready. Besides the all things elderberry gummies my kids ask for every morning, I want to talk about something that is a non-negotiable in my fridge, the everyday elderberry elixir from All Things Elderberry. They call it an elixir, not a syrup, and here's why. It's made with organic, farm-fresh Missouri elderberries, never dried. That gives it a light, uniquely juicy, and palatable consistency. It's not thick or overly sweet. And the difference it makes for me is huge. For me, a tablespoon anytime I feel that first little tickle in my throat or before a big event where I absolutely refuse to be sick. It either completely kicks symptoms to the curb or lessens them so fast. Even my oldest, Cora, is asking for it. I will never not have it. It's my daily defense. And who needs that defense more right now than our bride-to-be, Brooke?
Ooh, yes. Wedding season is basically a marathon. Between the bridal showers, the bachelorette trip to Florida, and all the main events, I don't have time to be run down. The thought of getting sick before my bachelorette trip, no thank you. I'm taking my elderberry elixir with me every morning, whether I'm at home or on the road. It's my little insurance policy so I can fully enjoy this once-in-a-lifetime season without worry. It's literally for the mom who holds everything together and the bride who is trying to hold her wedding together.
That's right. Whether you're a busy parent, a traveler, or a bride prepping for the big day, you deserve this defense. Stop letting illness slow you down. Head over to allthingselderberry.com right now.
And for 15% off your very first order, use our special code GOLDIVY. That's GOLDIVY. Get the everyday elderberry elixir. It's the defense you deserve.
Before we get back to today's conversation, I want to talk about something that hits most of us as we enter the premenopausal and menopausal years. That sudden, frustrating shift in how our bodies feel. We often talk about hot flashes, but we don't talk enough about the menopause middle. The stubborn bloating, the brain fog, and the fact that our digestion just seems to stall.
This isn't just in your head, it's in your microbiome. Trust me, I have worked for years to continually care for my gut health. As we age, our estrogen and progesterone levels drop, and we actually lose the diversity of the good bacteria in our gut. This dysbiosis leads to an increase in inflammatory bacteria, which is why we suddenly struggle with constipation, mood swings, and even sleep disturbances. That's why I want to introduce you to Relievance.
Relievance isn't just another fiber supplement. It was developed by Dr. Robert A. Gans, a nationally recognized board-certified gastroenterologist with over 30 years of clinical experience. Dr. Gans saw the limitations of standard fiber products and created this proprietary 8-fiber formula.
What makes Relievance different is the science of balance. It combines 8 different fibers, each selected for their specific viscosity and solubility. This allows the formula to dissolve gently and support your natural gut rhythm without the harsh gas or bloating often caused by single fiber supplements.
By increasing your fiber intake with a blended formula like Relievance, you're doing more than just staying regular. You're feeding the beneficial bacteria that help regulate your hormones, clear that menopause brain fog, and stabilize your energy levels. It's a tool to help fight the physiological effects of aging and reclaim your daily comfort.
It is third-party tested, gluten-free, and contains 0 artificial additives or fillers. It's just pure, clinically balanced support for a sensitive stomach. Sign me up.
If you're ready to target bloating at the source and support your microbiome through this transition, it's time to try the formula Dr. Gans developed for his own patients.
For your convenience, you can find Relievance Fiber right on Amazon or visit relievancefiber.com. Feel like yourself again with Relievance.
And so that's when I said, I want more. I'd like to meet with a specialist. I'd like to meet with a breast surgeon. And that was the first time that the gal on the other end that was calling me with the results for my mammogram and the ultrasound, it was the first time that she said, well, your results are fine. So can you give me a reason why? And I just kind of paused and I was like, okay. And that was my impact moment that really solidified in myself. No one's coming to save me. Yeah. This is up to me. If I'm going to push for this, gear up, let's go. And so I just said, it's my right to, let's go ahead and make the appointment. And she didn't push back too much further, but I finally got in front of a breast surgeon and she looked at the results. And I'm kind of going into some detail because as women, these results and these details matter. Yeah. So when you have small breasts, like I had at the time, I still do, but my natural breasts were very small. And so a mammogram doesn't actually tell us a lot of detail. they rely on, in a mammogram, they rely on the fat in your breast to contrast with actual tissue, whether it's good tissue or bad tissue. They're relying on that. And I had no contrast because I didn't have any fat in my breasts since my breasts were so small. So when my surgeon was talking through this, she said, it's literally like looking at a white piece of paper because there's no contrast and I can't see anything is wrong. So to the point of the gal that called with my results, they did look fine, but she didn't know my body. She didn't know the variables that I knew. And so that's why we need to speak up. What did help though was the ultrasound that they took from the left and the right side. The tissue type looked different in the left side versus the right side. And just that small detail was enough for my breast surgeon to say, I don't like these different cells though. I mean, we're talking cellular level now though. And we wouldn't have got there unless I would have said, I want to talk to someone more. I want to do more. There's more that can be done. So that was enough that she ordered a contrast MRI, which an MRI it is more sensitive, but less diagnostic. But that's all we need in a scenario when we're wondering, is there more? We need more sensitivity in there. So I had that done. And now to put timeline into perspective, we're about a year in at this point of time frame. And I went in for the MRI, and when that came back, it lit up like a Christmas tree. It was the sensitivity and the red flags that we needed for my breast surgeon to say, okay, I'm actually not fine. Because what they wanted to do, they wanted me to just sit for 6 more months and then come back for some repeat testing. Well, 6 months, when we're talking about what we are, that can cost a lot and not just time. And so that was enough. The MRI was enough from my breast surgeon to say, okay, I actually want to repeat some tests, but from a different approach. So we did more biopsies and we did some more testing. And at that point, those markers came back and I was confirmed with breast cancer.
Wow. Okay, so can we pause there for a second, Tiffanie? Yeah. Because I think about that moment, because yes, you're going to have to make decisions from there and the journey continues, but you are healthy. You're a mom of a little boy, a wife you love, a beautiful professional situation. You are a go-getter. You are a high achiever. And you're told this news, and I'm just putting myself in your shoes. Before you take action and you come up with your plan, how are you feeling? What's that call like? Like, what happens in that scenario?
Many different feelings, of course, but validation was one of the first ones that, as we started this and we were talking about hindsight, it was no coincidence in that moment of confirmation of like, hey, I mean, there were 1,000 unknowns, of course, at that point. Like, there's so many questions that come up next when you're told a diagnosis like that. But in that very moment, for me, there's no coincidence that I have spent the last year and a half double down in my habits, in development, in all of these things that can now support me in very intense journey to move forward. Right. And so it was validating, not just to hear like, oh, I was right for speaking up, but validating that our habits are so important. Our mindset is so important. I got that phone call when I was physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, the very strongest I ever have been in my life. And what a gift to be in that situation rather than being bulldozed when I'm already in the gutter in those health habits.
I love that that's how your brain works.
I want to know how you created space for those things on top of the business you have, being a mom, dealing with your health. I know a lot of people listening, myself included, health, when you don't feel well or when you're fighting for answers, it can feel like a full-time job. And then you add on all of the other responsibilities. So tell people, kind of paint a picture in your day-to-day. What are some of these things that helped you feel strong in those ways?
And I love this angle of conversation with people, because when we're talking about it's very simple. I mean, it's time management, right? You have the same 24 hours in your day that I have in mine, but how we handle those 24 hours may be and are likely very different. We all grew up in the same era, right? As far as like, okay, you wake up, you go to work all day, and then you do this right after work. And our schedules are just kind of like it's easy to get into a go with the flow type of a pattern with our time. We've watched our parents do a very classic, if you had parents in the workspace, you would watch them do this. There just wasn't a lot of room for creativity with your time. And what I've learned is our time is our own to dictate. And when we are dictating our time, we are not reacting to the uncontrollables around us. It gives us so much more power to say, there's space for this. It gives us permission to say no to things, which I think is challenging for a lot of people. And so really, Brooke, to like dial it back down to the question that you asked is really like, how am I spending my time? Who's deserving of that time? And where does that energy need to go in every day? No day looks the same in my week. Today looks very different than tomorrow is going to look. And that's just the life of business ownership and high performing people. But when we think about that with being able to handle the news, I think it's a combination of that and being okay with sitting in discomfort. Because when we think about, as I mentioned, that was a year-long timeline that I had to push and keep, sitting in an unknown. And when you're sitting in a place of unknown, your brain gets to wander to a lot of different places. So I had already entertained the idea of like, I could be dying from cancer right now. That is a very high possibility right now. And I had already let myself go to that space of what does that look and feel like? And that's a dark space to sit in. That may sound morbid, but what that allowed me to do is prepare. I was emotionally prepared at that moment. Then when I was, when I was told those words, you have breast cancer, it wasn't like, oh my gosh, I do. It was like, okay, well, we've entertained a few different angles of this. So what's next?
I'm so glad we're pausing in your story to talk about this, because I think we all need to be prepared for that moment. Like death is inevitable. I love that we're talking about it. And it's so much about how do you want to live your life? And when you do have a little boy, and, we all know when like our health is a little off and something's going on, like, how do I prepare for these moments? What do I want my legacy to be? What do I want to be known for? Let's say health isn't a thing and I know 100% I'm going to succeed. What do I want to be doing with my time? What will that look like? And it sounds like you really took control of allowing the negative answer you thought you might be getting to be a positive influence up to that answer. You know what I mean? Like, it's so powerful.
I think when we're in a situation like what we're describing, in any situation, because I do believe everybody is going to get hit with their full stop moment. And it may not be medical. It may not be financial. It's going to be something though. And so the real takeaway for me is, how are you going to prepare? How are you going to make yourself so well-rounded? And I'm not saying perfect. That's not what I'm saying at all. But how are you going to prepare yourself to be strong enough in those angles that when you come full stop, you're not hit with a wrecking ball? You get two choices in those scenarios. You get to ask yourself, why me? And you can go down that road, which is slippery slope, or you can turn and say, okay, what do we need to learn here? And that is a different journey.
Yeah. And up to this point too, you aren't turning away from it. You're not numbing. You're not using the excuse of her saying, well, you're fine. You'd be like, you know what? She said I'm fine. I don't have to deal with it. You are in the gym. You are putting yourself through uncomfortable situations with working your body, pushing yourself. I know from following you that you have very high standards for your relationship. You're very open and honest, and you two both push yourselves to be the best. So I just want to acknowledge that sometimes we want to run from this scary feeling, and that you are an example of somebody that did not. And so how did you use the strength you had built, resilience you had built, going through uncomfortable things up to that point to kind of move forward from there?
That's a great question. And for me, as I connect with people, as I mentor people, and their infrastructure does feel a little shaky, and they have that question of like, where do we start with this? Where do I start with, you know, step one? And the answer always rings first is self-trust. Do you trust yourself? It's a simple question, but it's one that you have to answer transparently. You have to answer with a full, honest heart. And unfortunately, I get the answer is no, oftentimes when I'm working one-on-one with people. And that's okay, because when we're taking inventory and we're asking those simple questions right up front, there's no judgment that's happening. We're not asking them so we can be like, well, shoot, you don't. And there is no judgment happening. We're data collecting because, again, that gives us the awareness of, okay, then what do we need to shift here? So if the answer is no, I don't trust myself. Okay, why not? Let's peel that back a little bit and let's get a little deeper than just the simple yes or no and find out why. But what that's doing is it's building that strength within yourself for the inevitable outside environment that is going to come pushing against you as you put that rep in little by little. And, to Brooke's point, it's the small things that are happening each day. When my alarm goes off, am I showing up for myself first thing by getting out of bed? Or am I procrastinating to myself and hitting the snooze button? It's just little things that may not be these big shining hero moments, but we're putting in the small little steps brick by brick, and that builds foundation. So, to your point, that is, it's got to start with you, because again, even if it's a scary answer of, I don't trust myself, the beautiful part is you can shift that. You have the power to take that back into your own control if you want to.
What I'm hearing is you have the self-trust. You believe and you trust yourself that whatever the answer is, breast cancer, diagnosis you don't want to hear, you trust yourself enough to deal with it, that you're going to get through it, because time after time you've showed yourself that you have what it takes to get through it, to get through all of the other hardships that you've been through in your past. Am I hearing that what you're saying, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And it was honestly like, there's been a lot of healing from past failures and falling on my face in adversary moments, that through this and being able to wrap my arms around something like this has allowed me to also wrap my arms around other failures. Because what I realized was, by having the courage to fail over and over and get up and keep going, that puts tools into our toolbox every time. And that puts, more sand in that bucket of like, well, there's your trust. There's your trust. You can do it. Having the courage to just keep going.
Let's flip it. So there were times in your journey, surgeries, in between surgeries and whatnot, where you couldn't be productive. You couldn't be this version of you that didn't hit snooze, hit the gym, productivity. So I want to know, in those moments where you had to believe rest was productive, you had to sit with your stillness, what did you learn about that version of you?
Oh, those moments. That's when you really get into like that mental tank, when you have a go-getter that is like a busybody. Those are very teaching moments. And honestly, like those were moments that were really, really beautiful. And again, solidifying for me. I've described a night, it was my second night home, and it was in the middle of the night. My whole home is sleeping except for me. And I'm laying in my bed. I can't lift my arms. I'm in a body that looks and feels very unfamiliar to me. And I'm in a lot of pain. We couldn't get on top of my pain. And I didn't want to, I'm not one to like keep masking it with, I don't like pain meds. So I was on like a glorified Tylenol for lack of a better word. But instead of sitting there laying in that hospital or laying in my bed here at home and being like, man, we can't get on top of my pain, I really did get to like dig a little deeper and like, what am I feeling right now? I get to feel this feeling. I get to be here right now. And I got to really unpack, like, how did I prepare for this and what matters right now? And honestly, it was the energy that I was bringing back into my body, because again, I was put forth with like the choice. Am I going to wallow in this pain right now? And am I going to cry myself back to sleep? Or am I going to feed my body full of some powerful affirmations and mindset right now? And that's exactly what I did. And I sat there and I went through every positive, powerful affirmation that I could. Like, you are a warrior and you are healing. And, so I got to do those things to show up for myself. But beyond that, I also got to soak in the service that was around me and that was happening, and the love that was like tangibly flowing through my community and my home. And when you are a natural giver, to be in a space of receiving is a very teachable moment. And it was difficult for me to receive at first. And then I got to just pause and say, like, Tiffanie, you know how much you love serving others, and you know how much you love pouring into others. And if you push back and say, like, oh, we're fine, we don't need anything, there's that fine word again, then I'm denying other people that same fulfillment that I get when I get to serve others. And it's really just like, it's a gift that just keeps on giving. And if I'm not willing to accept it, I'm putting a stop in that ever flowing wheel. So there was a lot that was learned. I could go on and on about the thoughts that come in in those moments, but 2 points, you're stronger than you ever acknowledge. Each one of us are so much stronger. We have a beautiful little reserve tank that's sitting there, that when you think you're running on empty, you can tap into that little tank and it gives you that little power booster. But in combination with that, you don't have to do it alone. There are always other people that are there for you, but it does taking the ability to ask or receive.
Yeah. I'm thinking about you being a mother to a young little boy boys are wild and they want to jump on their mom but they're so sweet and they love the cuddles and they're just like, oh, I just could eat up my 4-year-old little boy right now. So I'm just thinking about him, and I'm thinking about, we haven't really talked about surgery, like what you actually went through. So can you kind of walk us through what you had to go through as far as surgeries, like what you chose to do and how that was, like balancing that as a mother and how that went for him too?
Yeah. So once I got my diagnosis, we were able to look at a couple different angles, and one thing was for sure, we needed to get the tumor out of there, and we needed to do, because my breasts were smaller. I wasn't a candidate for a lumpectomy, and there were markers in that last biopsy that were pointing to intravasive cancer as well. So when we're talking about breast cancer, just to educate people a little bit, there are so many different terminologies and everything that's used in the breast cancer world. But there's 2 different angles that they look at. If it's maintained inside the duct, then that's like best case scenario. It hasn't started spreading at that point, essentially. If it has broken through the duct, that's when you hear the term intravasive. And when you hear that term, that's when we start questioning, has it traveled to lymph nodes? Is it in other parts of your body? It gets more serious at that point. And my biopsy had been pointing to that as well. So we didn't know, like I mentioned, there were a lot of unknowns going into this. And so when my surgeon came to me, she was like, well, do you want to do the single mastectomy, one side, or do you want to do double? I was like, I will feel like a ticking time bomb. Let's get them out. Like they're boobs for me. It was not like an identity tie-in for me. I was like, what I'm here for is to show up for that little boy and for my wife on the other side of this surgery. And so there wasn't a question in my mind. So I got my double mastectomy last March. And when I came out of that, you have to do these in a couple different steps, typically, not always, but in my case, there was a couple steps that had to go through. So we went through the double mastectomy. And they take all of that tissue and send it down to pathology to really, that's when they finalize, like, what phase are you in? Has this traveled? They took some lymph nodes at that point as well to test those. And we're looking at the big picture here and making a full treatment plan. And then, so that leaves you in a little bit of a gap of when are you going to have treatment started? If you do, then all those treatments need to be done before any reconstruction can happen. If you don't, then there's still some time periods if you are electing to do reconstruction versus being so, there's a lot of variables, right? So that also is like another mental push of like, augmentation was not on my radar at any point. And then all of a sudden to be slammed with like, okay, you have breast cancer and now you need to decide, are you going to have are you going to do augmentation or are you just going to be sewn up flat? Are you going to like, it's like, whoa, 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 you know? And so anyways, I mean, again, it's like using your own, staying in alignment with yourself was the biggest thing that I could do during all of these different decisions to be made. So I get the mastectomy in March and you can't use your arms for a long time. You come out of that with tissue expanders in your chest, which is a whole different beast of a feeling. You have drains coming out. So like when I say that I looked and felt like a foreign person, my sweet 4-year-old boy came into my room it was a few days after my surgery. So he walks in and my wife's helping me with some dressing changes. I can't lift my arms. I mean, I'm relying on everybody for everything. I can't, I'm like, we got to tag me as T-Rex because that was fun for him. But he walked into my room and he sees mommy looking very different. And I have drains coming out my body. And he looks at me and he goes, "Oof, mommy, you don't look so good."
Oh.
I said, "I know, buddy, but we're going to get there." And, to kind of dial it all back and take us back to what you were asking, it was these moments where I did just have to rely on that strength and know that I have milestones to work for, So while I'm a busy mom and I'm a CEO of a company and own other businesses, like there's many things on the table, focusing on what matters in that very moment and knowing that there are things that can wait. And that was a good lesson in all of that like when we're in the hustle of our daily grind, like we are usually, it's like some things feel like they are life or death moments, but it's like the email actually can wait. Yeah. It's okay, but knowing the connecting moments, knowing what's serving you in that very moment versus it puts priority in place. That saying of like true perspective breeds discipline. That is a very, very true statement in my entire journey that I went through. It put perspective into a lot of things. A lot of things didn't matter, still don't matter. And you just take it as it comes.
Yeah. I think about something that does matter is the people that showed up for you. And going back to what you said, it's hard to ask for help. So for someone listening who is that helper or has someone in their circle who is going through something similar or they want to show up, what advice would you give them? What do you wish people would have done, or what did they do that really, made you feel loved and made a difference?
Oh, the tangible feeling that I described of love in my home, in my community, connecting with other strangers online that I've never even met in person before. There really was a beautiful connection. And when I took a step back and really soaked in like what was happening around me, the outpouring of giving that was happening, even in moments where I may have wanted to say like, we're okay, we're already blessed with so much. It wasn't for me most times, but it was certainly for my family, for my wife that is watching her wife go through extensive pain and healing, and she can't do anything except for try and comfort me. Well, she deserves some comfort as well. Yeah. And the community that stepped in got to help her, got to help our little boy. I remember a phone call that my sister, she called me and was like, "I'm having so many people call me and check in." And, and it was a ripple effect of really understanding there is still so much good in this world.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're, again, aware and you're just looking around and also open to receiving, boy, is that a beautiful realization that there's a lot of chaos in the world and there's a lot of noise, but there's also still so much beauty.
That's so powerful right now with what's going on in our world.
Mm-hmm.
And I think too, like you said before, like giving people the opportunity to show up for you, allowing them, to show how much they care. And you got to see that. And like, that is definitely sounds like one of the gifts of this experience. I'm curious on the flip side, just like thinking about what people say, you're active on social media. Is there anything, like any advice you could give for what to say, maybe what not to say to somebody that's going through this?
I mean, it's just like if you've been pregnant before, or I mean, any scenario where like you're going through something new and someone's done it ahead of you. But like pregnancy was honestly the one that I could relate to most because it was like a feeling of, when I'm very short. And so like in my pregnancy, I started showing really early. And I'll never forget, like I ran into a friend that she's this like beautiful, tall, 5'9" blonde that didn't show until she was like ready to walk into the hospital until she was delivering. And I ran into her fairly early in the pregnancy and she was like, "Oh my gosh, you're already showing." And it's like this moment where you're like, "I am." And question mark, is that good or bad? But it's the same thing in a moment where you are going through something so life altering. And again, it doesn't have to be medical. It's just a feeling of something new. Instead of inserting your feelings, just simply saying, "How can I be here for you?" And just letting it be open-ended for that person to express. Now there's two sides to that though, because if you have someone that's a giver, like we're talking about, and you say, "How can I be there for you?" They're going to say, "Oh, I'm fine." Right. But and that's different in like a stranger scenario versus someone that you're close to, right? So if you know that someone's a giver, then also just deciding something that you're doing. "Hey, I'm dropping dinner off on your porch. Don't feel like you need to answer the door. You can put it in the freezer if you need to. Use it when you do." But it was just an act of like, "I'm here for you." And then that got to let my family receive it how they needed to, feel that love how we needed to. So there's two folds to that, because I do think like in a situation where you're just kind of doing some talk therapy with a girlfriend, then yeah, how can I help you? And just be open to it and don't feel like you have to solve anything. It's not your problem to solve, but you can certainly be a support.
Yeah. And food's always a good idea.
Food's always a good idea.
It really is. I'm curious also. I just like, I'm putting myself in your shoes. I'm thinking about you going through this, and I'm thinking about, you and your wife do like body competitions.
Yeah.
And it's not like you're like, "Look at me and look at my body." Like it's for strength. It's like to push yourself, right? But when you're used to your body looking a certain way, and all of a sudden it doesn't look anything like it looked, and you can't use it the way, can you talk about like looking in the mirror and what that experience was like when you're seeing scars or you're seeing things looking differently?
Yeah, absolutely. The physical aspect of that is a subject that it's one that's like, yes, I can have the strongest mindset in the world, but I'm still human when I stand in front of that mirror and I'm like, wow, this is very different. I mean, there were moments of just like, I think I'm entitled to I know I'm entitled to my feelings, right? Letting myself feel that and don't shove them under the rug, right? But being able to talk through that, and also being able to like talk through that with my person and be like, "This feels so weird." The weird part for me really was truly like when I had those tissue expanders in. I'm a big hugger. You ladies know that because we all embraced a lot when we met each other.
Yeah.
And I'm a big hugger. And when I had those tissue expanders in, the front of a tissue expander is actually metal.
Oh.
And that's how like there's a whole process of, you have tissue expanders to be able to fill them with saline and get your body prepared for a permanent implant. That's the purpose of a tissue expander. So for those people who are like, "What is she talking about?" That's the purpose of it. Your tissue inside and outside is prepping for a new implant down the road at some point. they feel that the front of it is metal though. So literally like when I would go to hug someone in this interim time when I'd have that, they just feel a hug from Tiffanie. But what I'm feeling from the inside is like I'm a metal chested Hulk right now. Like it was like felt very foreign to me. And it's like, okay, let myself feel that.
Yeah.
I had a doctor's appointment that I came home from shortly after that, and it was not the news that I had hoped for at the time. And I let myself cry for the rest of the day in my room because we are human and we need to express our feelings. There's no progression when you're bottling things up. And so again, feeling the bad and the good is both equally as important, right?
Yes.
So anyways, as I'm looking at myself and understanding and learning this new body, you know, it's also looking at like, look at what my body is capable of doing right now, you know, and falling in love with other ways of, okay, it's not my body that I was in love with in the movement. It was the movement. So how can I move my body in a different way? So in that interim period, when I had those tissue expanders, I fell in love with walking. It actually turned out to be one of my favorite parts of the day because my wife and I would go out for a walk and I'd leave my phone here. I'd disconnect from the world, from my businesses, and we would go walk for 20, 30 minutes together and just connect. And it was a totally different way of serving my mind and my body in a different way than, yeah, I wasn't under a barbell at that time, or I wasn't, you know, doing some of the other exercises that I would normally do, but my body still got to show up for me. And like, what a beautiful honor that I can go a different route. It doesn't have to be one way. That's a big lesson, is nothing is ever one way. There's always a different answer to everything. So finding different outlets, to your point of like, okay, how am I going to learn this new body, and then honoring what it is today. You know, I mean, there are parts of my body that I would give anything to go back to my body before. But knowing the journey and why I'm still here and what I'm able to now serve others with and hopefully save lives as well by speaking up earlier in our journeys, I will take some of the days when maybe a shirt doesn't fit as it used to, or maybe I have to toss out a shirt altogether because I'm like, well, this isn't working with my new body, and that's okay because it's just a body and it's a vessel to let me connect with others.
That speaks to all of the personal development you have done.
Yeah.
It's going back to the beginning of this conversation of setting you up to be able to handle this. Every answer you give is like, yep, she's read some books. She's deep in her spirituality. The reps you have put in, you can tell. And it makes you who you are. And we're so grateful to know you and to be in your presence. We're grateful that you listened to that internal voice because it's not easy to do.
No. And I will tell you, like, we all have the ability to take and have influence from others. And then we also have the ability to like protect that energy, and we don't have to be influenced from others. Right. So I think big lessons of that is how are you pouring into others? What's the mark that you're leaving on someone's life? And my purpose and my mission is to always leave a life or an interaction better than when we started, you know? But I feel that with you ladies of what I learned from you at our event. Brooke, you shared your story of resilience, and I had a lot of takeaway from that, of forming my own journey with that. And you had no idea until this moment that I'm sharing that with you that I had that takeaway from that, you know? And same with you, Andrea, like when I watch you interact as a mom with your kids, like we're all observing. And I think when you get to like take those, that's the best part of mentorship, in my opinion, is like you get to take what is serving you, and then you also have the power to shed the things that are no longer serving you, and being okay with both angles of that, and knowing the power that you have to grow and continue to uplift yourself. It's a beautiful space to sit in.
Yeah, you are such a great example of someone to follow and emulate, because I think typically someone that's such a giver like you has a hard time with shedding things or saying no or protecting their energy. So again, like Brooke's saying, you've done a lot of work. You can tell you've read the books. And I think too, being an entrepreneur and a mom, like you only have so much space, and you work on your relationship. You mean, you have to say no to to say no to things. And I think I really want people to know where they can follow you and how they can connect with you, because we have just barely scratched the surface of what you offer this world. And I know they're going to want to know how to follow you and potentially how to work with you too.
Yeah, absolutely. How to follow me? I'm over on Instagram, and it's Tiffanie.Janowitz is my handle. Of course, I'm going to throw a little curveball because Tiffany's not with a Y, it's with an IE, but you'll be able to find me. And then same with my website, it's TiffaniJanowitz.com. And so if you do want to connect, that's the best place to connect, because that's where I step offline and have conversations with people. So
I love it.
We'll, of course, link all of that below in the show notes. Tiffanie, we leave our listeners with what we call 3 gold stars. So 3 top takeaways you want to leave people with in our conversation today. What would they be?
Never settle for anything that is out of alignment. No matter how hard it seems, your alignment and your peace should be the thing that you protect the very most. My second thing would be, there is always another way of solving problems. And so don't feel like just because you've been told one route is the route, it's not the one. You can always get creative with that. And the third would be something over nothing, something in the step forward of the right direction, whether that is something in the health realm or building that trust in yourself. One little thing is better than nothing. And those little things add up. Like I said, brick by brick.
Oh, it's such a beautiful example of taking something that is just could be so life-shattering, and you've just made it so beautiful with how your brain works. And there's so much underneath the surface of this, which is why I love that we're doing Unleashing Ivy surprise questions for you. Because I just want to be more like you, okay? So my question for you that I'm curious about has to do with your relationship. I could cry about it. What's your wife's name?
Mandy,
I watch you and Mandy cheer each other on. I can just see how active both of you are with your son. And I know it goes so much deeper than this. So I would love if you could pinpoint something that you and Mandy do, whether it's regularly, once a year, something that you guys do that creates such a deep, rich relationship where like you guys are on the same page. Can you help us all out and tell us what you guys do?
Oh gosh, there's a lot to unpack there. But honestly, my favorite thing that we have incorporated over the last year is family prayer, which sounds, for me, I had to rewrite what praying looked like for me. I was raised in a dominant religion that like prayer almost was scripted. And I've spent a lot of time rewriting what that looks like for me, what my relationship with God is, who my God is. There's a lot to unpack there. That's why I was saying there's a lot there. But a new thing over the last year that we've done is say family prayers. So Banks, our little boy, will start out and we don't lead these in any way of like whatever is on his heart, he gets to say. So his are usually very sweet and simple. Like, I love my mommy. I love my mama. I love everything. Amen. And it's just very sweet, but you're like, beautiful. Thank you for sharing. And sometimes it's like in an alien voice and sometimes it's in regular. I mean, 4-year-old boys are just going to keep you guessing. But then for Mandy and I to pour into one another and into our God and just express like the gratitude that we have for so many different angles and have that be the way that we wrap up every single day with the 3 of us and our family. It's more powerful than I could ever describe to you. And for someone who has been able to realign in spirituality and like rewrite what that looks like, I would challenge you to wrestle with that and give it a try, because it's a very, very bonding moment.
I love that. And I think something that I've realized as a mom, and now my kids are getting older and I'm thinking about them leaving the home, I'm 5 years away from that with my oldest. And I think from someone that didn't come from like a really like religious, like my parents took me to church, it wasn't like that. It was more like a relationship. You can take that anywhere. Right? The more that you have that prayer, that relationship with God, your son is learning that you and your family can be anywhere and pray, and it's accessible anywhere. It doesn't have to be in a church. It doesn't have to be a certain way with certain words.
Yes.
It's this relationship. So
It's
I think
like
that's
a conversation
beautiful.
like I'm having with you ladies, and there's laughing in our prayers, and there's crying, and there's in between. And it's like, why would I talk to this person differently than I would my most special humans?
Yes. And then it's accessible all the time.
Yes.
It's like you can tap into that love. You can tap into that strength when he's off to college or he's in his relationship. I think that's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
That teased me up perfectly, because my question was going to be, and you kind of answered it, but I'm going to challenge you to answer it a little differently, not with the example you just gave, but what did your spirituality look like before the diagnosis, and now what does it look like? Maybe how has it shifted, or maybe there's certain things you still do?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I believe spirituality is an ever evolving thing. It's one that will be strengthened. It's one that will be challenged, and all in between. And so to kind of go off of what I was sharing before, there was some rewiring in my brain that I had to do once I decided to challenge, like, what did religion and spirituality look like for me? And this happened 20 years ago in my life. And so this was a long time, and this was a very evolving process. And for a long time, like I would say, I would call this energy like the universe. And I do still believe that to an extent, but I had to really redefine, like, just what did this all look like and feel like, again, in alignment and true in my heart. And it wasn't until like taking the space it was actually before my diagnosis, while I'm sitting in those dark times of like wrestling with this and challenging, like, okay, I've obviously got something that I need to learn. So let's chat. Let's go for this, and that's really where the conversational piece came with my God, and then feeling the support and understanding that in the most unconditional way. That's been a big takeaway for me. So yes, to your question, Brooke, it's been an ever evolving journey that I know is not done. I have some big spiritual goals this year to understand and wrestle with for myself. And but I think when you're in that in between, again, that's where contention can sit. That's when uncertainty can come in. It's hard to feel a very clear stance on anything if you haven't put the work to really challenge it to yourself. So like, what did Tiffanie feel? Peel back all the outside things, peel back all of what I was raised with, what may, or what I should have to do, or was like brought up to do, what social norms are. How do I feel? And base it off of that. And that's challenging, but it's served my family and it served me so well.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Doesn't matter what it looks like. Does it feel aligned? That's kind of what I'm hearing.
Mm-hmm. And I think too, there's something about just like the word maturing in faith comes to mind, because it's like you're having hard conversations with yourself and with God. And that it's not comfortable, it's like determining what that looks like for you. But yeah, you're always pushing yourself to do something hard. I love it.
It's often in those dark spaces, no matter the context of it, but it's the dark spaces that light comes through. You can't have a learning moment if you're not pushed and if you're not uncomfortable.
Yeah. And I think too, you're strengthening your faith. And it's just like you were talking about before, where it's like you can stand firm in that. So whatever comes your way, where you stand, what the non-negotiables are in your life, what's right and what's not right. And so it's almost like helps you simplify your life, knowing like, I'm so strong in this, and these are my values, and anything other than that ain't it.
Yeah. And like when you're sure in that, like for me anyways, it has strengthened the way that I love. It's strengthened the way that I'm able to learn from others and open my mind to, again, like there's no one certain way. And I really think that's when we're able to connect and help each other be better and grow better. And there's just a lot of layers with that.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Sure. Okay, Tiffanie, last question. If you could go back to younger Tiffanie, any age, and tell her something, what age would you go back to and what would you tell her?
Oh, I would go back to that little 18-year-old girl that I was just describing to you that felt that pull of her voice for the first time. Um, and I would tell her, you are right where you need to be, and you listen to your voice. Your voice is stronger than you'll ever understand. So just keep pushing.
So much. I'm so happy you joined us today, Tiffanie.
Thank you
for
having
a
me.
million reasons. I mean, the amount of gold you gave today, first of all, just sharing your story and being vulnerable and open to come here and share this, what you went through. It's such a personal thing with your family, with your son, with your wife, with your community. I'm so happy you're sharing it because it's been so beautiful to watch. You're showing the moments that are dark and are uncertain and how you got through it. And it's going to help so many people. And we're so happy to share it with our listeners that we love so much. And they're mostly women. And so I'm just happy to know that you listened to yourself on that phone call that easily could have been, okay. Mm-hmm. And now that you're here, that you're healthy, that you're sharing it. And on top of that, just how you live your life. How the integrity that you have and the values that you have and how you take care of people and how you take care of yourself. You are just such a beautiful example of the women we aim to be. And we want to embody so many of the things that you're doing. And like you said, we all will have a moment that shakes us and rocks us. And the time is now to step into, listening to yourself, creating awareness, taking steps, leaning on community. And so I just want to send you so much gratitude for being here and for being you. We are so honored to have your time and to know you.
Thank you. The feeling is so mutual. I so appreciate you ladies sharing this story. I hope that we're able to give others that nudge. Every single one of you are worth it. So
I don't want to wrap it up, but
I can tell.
Here I am. All right. Well, we end every episode of Ivy Unleashed with a piece of gold. A quote that speaks to you. Would you sign us off, Tiffanie, with yours?
One that is hitting right now is move forward with discipline and not force. Your timing is perfect.
This is Gold Ivy signing off.
Listen to your truth and go chase your gold. We want to thank you and encourage you to celebrate yourself for taking the time to learn and get inspired in your one beautiful life. And if this podcast means something to you, it would mean so much to us if you'd be willing to take 30 seconds to help support our mission to keep bringing you inspiring stories and guests.
First, following the podcast is important because it helps you never miss an episode. To do this, just go to the Ivy Unleashed podcast show page on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And then just tap the plus sign in the upper right-hand corner or click on follow.
While you're there, if you'd be so kind to give us a 5-star rating and review and share your favorite episode with a friend, we'd be so grateful for your support.
We are thrilled you're here and are so happy that you're taking time to prioritize your wellness, self-discovery, and growth with us. Additionally, we want to remind you that this podcast is presented solely for educational and entertainment purposes. We are not licensed therapists, and this podcast is not intended as a substitute for the advice of a physician, professional coach, psychotherapist, or other qualified professionals.